2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
Should I stay in a sexless relationship?
Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers.
We're therapists.
And we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin.
Brannon, good to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
I got a question for you today.
Oh man, I love it. Bring it.
I don't know if you'll even remember this, but retell the story of the day you built the fort by the country club.
You know, it's funny. It was like this time of year. It was this week because I had just gotten out of sixth grade, and me and my friends, we've been looking for a while for a place to build a fort. You know, we wanted our own place. We could
your own hideout,
hunker down. Yeah, and we had this group of guys. We called ourselves No Chicken.
No Chicken.
Yeah.
I didn't even remember that
because we weren't chicken to do anything.
No chicken.
No chicken. And yeah, Winston, Dustin, you know, Hail Spice. These were my boys, Lynn. Anyways, we set up this. We found this perfect spot down by a river, just off of a golf course. It was like between a golf course and a park, and so nobody would go down there ever. And we found this perfect spot. It was covered with trees, right by a river. There was kind of these kind of weeds, and so we laid them down, and they were kind of soft, and
made your own beds. You built a fort.
Built the fort. It was awesome because we had this bed of kind of weeds, and well, those weeds were poison oak. And let's just say this, everything swelled up. Everything. Oh my gosh, poison oak is
That's better than Cialis.
Oh my, yeah, big time. I remember Mom, middle of the night, I look like a monster, my face just and I was like, yeah, down low, some issues too. She's like, let me see. And I was like, oh,
you're a sixth grade boy.
Yeah. So then Dustin broke out. We all started breaking out in it. Needless to say, that fort didn't last too long.
Oh, man.
It's funny you bring that up.
I can't believe it was like, talk about like trauma response. I can't believe it's like the almost the week anniversary of when that
It
happened
is
20
the
plus
week.
years
It
ago.
is the week right now, and yeah, I'm having flashbacks. So
Yeah.
thank goodness for prednisone. Like it
Yeah.
saved my life. Like just a little bit of steroid. Like, but here I could go on. So I went on steroids to take away the inflammation and stuff. And steroids mess with your emotions. So I go to a baseball game then like the next day. I'm still like elephantitis man a little bit. And I strike out and just start sobbing like uncontrollably, like and I'm like, why am I crying? Anyways, I could go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
man.
was a fun experience.
Yeah. Well, and you learned the hard way what poison oak was. So
Yeah, I
you've never
learned the
made that
hard.
mistake since.
Well, I actually did, but that's another story. Yeah, I have big time
You're slow
later, but
learner.
yeah, slow learner.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah. Well, just another quick shout out here. We used to be about 3 months out on guest callers, and then we messed up on the website. I messed up the website, so there's actually openings for guests. So if you're interested in coming on the show with us right now, therapybrothers.org. You can go and sign up to be a caller, or you can just submit a question in writing. We've been getting a lot of people asking about being stuck, like kind of being in that space in a relationship where the crisis part of the disclosure is over after the betrayal of some type of trust, but really not making extra progress now, maybe in that year to 3 or 4 years after. If you're a couple that's in that position and willing to come on and talk with us, we would love to have you come on and have some discussion around that. Again, therapybrothers.org. Go sign up, become a call on the show.
yep, we would love to have you. So please come on. Okay, Tyler, we're talking about stuck. We're talking about a difficult topic that a lot of times people feel really stuck with. So, should I stay in a sexless relationship? This comes up quite a bit. And I think surprisingly, Tyler, for some people, this is not like when it comes to men or women on one side or the other, it happens on one side or the other all the time. And there's reasons why sex life breaks down, and there's reasons why sex stops in a relationship. But then it leads to all kinds of stuff that comes up in that relationship as a result. So I'm excited to dive into this with you, Tyler.
We get this one quite a bit, Brannon. I get this a lot, like you said, actually on both sides. It doesn't seem to be just a men's or a women's question. The reasons why it gets asked and the conditions of the relationship might be a little bit different sometimes. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I think that's where we start, Brannon, is let's talk about the reasons a sexless marriage starts to form and what happens, at least some typical things that can go on. And then after that, we can kind of get into a discussion about, well, then what do I do and how long do I stay?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. So, so how does it start to form? Like that's a really complicated question because it can happen for a lot of different reasons.
Multiple reasons.
Yeah, anything from sex is painful physically, and so sex is really hard to engage in. Sometimes there's some erectile dysfunction or a lack of performance, so there's a lot of shame around that. So I don't want to engage sexually because it just triggers so much of my shame.
Pull away from it.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just the breakdown in the relationship, breakdown in trust, breakdown in intimacy, breakdown in connection. And so one or both partners don't desire sex with each other, but still desire sex because they're human.
Right.
And
I think that's at the essence of this question that we've got, and maybe we'll be spending a lot of time on that particular one, Brannon. There's another one too that you mentioned that I think is important just to speak. That a lot of times expectations around sexual intimacy are different according to your own belief systems about sex before you even get into the relationship in the first place. And so then you get into the relationship and there's two sets of expectations and two sets of feelings about sexuality that it's so strange to me, but a lot of people before they get married never even talk about those kinds of things.
Right.
And then they clash, and then it causes such a discomfort that people just often try to avoid it.
Yeah. Like I'll give you an example, a common one, where there's expectations about sex, and a lot of times, some of those expectations are, the man thinking I'm entitled to this. Where is sex? And the woman actually, in many ways, takes on that same expectation. Has sex when she doesn't
Like
want it,
pressure to perform.
pressure to perform, pressure to step into it, to do it, even though she doesn't like it. And over time, if she continues to do that, she starts to resent it. She starts to avoid it. She starts to not want to have sex.
And then the partner who wants it is feeling like it's personal and like they're
Yeah,
getting
where's my sex? I'm
rejected.
entitled to this. Yeah,
Yeah.
which never leads to the other partner saying, "Yeah, okay, like that turns me on," because it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right. So this is just an example of how it can break down over time. On top of things, Tyler, that we deal with all the time, things like betrayal,
Yeah.
or cheating or broken trust, like those things oftentimes aren't good for a couple's sex life. So yeah, it can break down in all different ways.
Yeah. As far as like just for our discussion right now, Brannon, for a minute, let's just use the question that's here. It's been 3 years since disclosure and we haven't had sex yet. I'm assuming we were having sex before disclosure and then it's changed.
Yeah.
Let's go off of that premise.
Okay.
My partner never initiates, and when I've tried to, it's always met with rejection. What do I do?
So 3 years.
So it's been 3 years past D-Day. There's still a whole bunch of details that would need to be filled in, but we can speak principally to some things here.
Yeah.
We haven't had sex yet. My partner never initiates, and when I have tried, it is always met with rejection. So we were having sex. We've had this big, massive blow up in our relationship, and since then, physical intimacy has pretty much been off the table for 3 years now.
Right. Right. And yeah, I think, Tyler, there's this like belief out there that it goes something like this, like you can live without sex. So why don't you, like, if you can live without sex, then it's selfish to want it when your partner doesn't. It goes something like that, right? And especially when you've betrayed or done something to harm the relationship, like how dare you push for sex in the relationship? But there's a problem with that thinking. Do you see the problem with that thinking, Tyler?
Yeah, I think I would first say that part of what you're saying though, Brannon, is that there is some legitimacy to it as well, where
Absolutely.
where the partner a lot of times who's pushing for more sex, especially if they've been the one who's done the betraying too, oftentimes they've got some. There may even have some kind of compulsive sexual behavior going on.
Right.
And if that's the case, then they've learned to look at sex in a certain way with a certain energy and a certain level of expectation, a certain set of beliefs that has them come to believe that sex is my biggest need. And they kind of need to learn that, at least I don't know if you've had this happen, but nobody's exploded to date in 20 years of therapy. Nobody's died. Nobody's like, people do survive without sex.
How many times have I heard that, like, just that manipulation of like, oh, I need to have it or else, right? Or else what? Like,
Or else I'm going to die. Some people literally think I don't think I can survive without it.
Right.
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 Now, with that said, Brannon, I know where you're going. I just want to get that out there that sometimes there's a belief about that that's actually causing part of the disconnection in the relationship and the struggle, and it's creating pressure on the relationship. And it's coming from a place of beliefs that's actually not serving you very well. Now, with that said, the response to too many things over the course of our careers, Brannon, has been then that means we need to shut down your sexuality. You should never want it. You should never feel sexual. You should never pursue your partner again. And I think both you and I would maybe disagree with that approach.
Absolutely. Well, so I look at it like this. A healthy relationship has connection. Now, connection is like this big word because it means a lot of things. But I'm talking emotional connection. A healthy relationship has emotional connection. A healthy relationship has spiritual connection. A healthy relationship has sexual connection, physical connection, and physical connection that's not sexual as well, right? And a healthy it has social connection. So I'm naming all of these things: social, sexual, emotional, physical. Every single one of those things is really important, really, really important, including sexual connection. Like that's important. So can I live without it? Yeah, I can live. But when it comes to being a fully balanced human who is experiencing all of life, that part of connection in a relationship is important, I believe, to every human. Now, does that mean, therefore, I have to have it or else I'm going to explode, you say, Tyler? or or I have to have it, my spouse better give it to me because I better have it because
Because good relationships are supposed to have that.
Yeah, no. It doesn't mean any of that. It doesn't mean any of that. And it is important. And so like I've seen people get divorced because they haven't had sex in 10 years. And to me, after 10 years, now there's some things that hopefully we'll get into here that you can do before you get to divorce. But at what point do you really start sacrificing yourself and sacrificing your truths by accepting no sexuality in your relationship, right? And it's important for you to own that and to be honest with yourself. Now, let's back up, Tyler, before we're getting to I'm going to divorce you because you won't have sex with me because
Right.
because there's a lot of things that you absolutely can do to help the situation in your relationship. That will support, hopefully, you guys getting back online and connecting in all the ways.
Yeah. If it's okay, Brannon, I want to maybe just paint the picture of a pretty popular thing that goes on in our practice when this happens. At least a wide bandwidth of a lot of people would relate to this. Okay. And then maybe we'll see a couple of places where snags happen. So we have what we think is a healthy relationship. D-Day happens, things blow up. And as a result of that, everything gets thrown into question. The body goes into shock sometimes, trauma shock, like, whoa, like I'm blindsided. I don't even know what to believe anymore. There's this, if you go to therapy anywhere, you're probably going to be taught you need to start grounding yourself and you need to seek safety. And safety sometimes includes taking some emotional or physical distance from the places where you've been traumatized. And you're swimming, you're trying to figure out how to get your feet planted again to get a clear head and make decisions. And then you have the questions that get thrown into the mix in your relationship that include questions about sexual intimacy, safety, connection, all of those things, right?
Right.
So, and then what we teach, I don't know if you teach similar principles or not exactly this way, Brannon, but I teach partners to engage in sexual intimacy when there's safety and trust, and to protect themselves and never to engage in sexual intimacy if it's out of a place of guilt or fear or shame.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So a partner is taught, a betrayed partner is taught, take some time, get grounded, set some boundaries to make sure that you're not going to like get flooded emotionally. And then let's start making sure that you're engaging sexually when the conditions are safe and right for you to do that with your values.
Yes.
Right? So so we're all on the same page right now that that's the direction we start to go. And then what you have is the betraying partner kind of going like, okay, and I need to go to work on myself, which means I need to learn to be accountable, humble, honest, learn to practice some empathy, start leaning into the relationship differently, showing up, sometimes having to recalibrate what physical intimacy means to not just mean the daily quest, but to actually be grateful for a handhold or an eye wink or a smile or other forms of intimacy. I'm working on that, expanding that scale of intimacy and being grateful for all of it instead of just the final product. My partner is now trying to figure out how to get grounded and make choices based off of safety and trust. And a lot of times couples get in that holding pattern, and that's one of the catch points where then it could go for years without being able to move forward. Now,
Right.
if I'm the betrayed partner and my partner isn't doing that work that I just described in terms of working on honesty, humility, openness, empathy, it's going to be really hard for me to want to lean back in. And it's probably wise for me not to lean back in too much if those things aren't happening.
Right.
And
Right.
on the flip side, if I'm working my tail off and I'm becoming honest, I like where I'm going, I've created some sobriety, I've cut off my affair partner, I'm stepping in and learning empathy, I'm holding space, I'm expanding my perceptions over time, that's creating safety in the relationship. And if my partner decides never to come along inside of that safety, then there's another gap that gets spread that way. And eventually, even though I'm the one who did the betraying in the first place, I've also basically become a completely different person, and I'm growing out of the old relationship.
Right.
Right. Now, that's not to put pressure on the betrayed partner, but the betrayed partner sometimes relies so much on that word, quote, safety. And we're big on safety, but that word safety sometimes also means don't step back in the game even when you probably need
Well,
to.
yeah, safety is it's such a catch 22 because you'll know that you have trust and safety when you take risk. And I know that sounds backwards. And so if you're sitting on the sideline and never wanting to be vulnerable with your partner, you'll actually never know whether they're safe, like truly. So
And that's the risk, because then it's a messy process where you get it right sometimes and sometimes you don't. And if both partners are working, and that's kind of a hard process for people to go through.
yeah. Tyler, have you ever heard of sensate focused therapy?
Yeah.
So I just like the premise of it because it kind of explains a little bit of what you're talking about. So it's a type of sex therapy that it utilizes these touch-based exercises that couples do to improve their sex life. But it's really interesting what it is. They'll have homework between therapy sessions, and the homework is things like, you can touch these parts of your partner's body. It might just be their hand,
Their
for
feet.
example, their feet. And that's all you can touch. And this will not lead to sex. And so you can connect to them in this physical way that's very managed and very controlled in many ways, and yet it's still vulnerable. And then it leads into things like looking in each other's eyes, and then finally like full-fledged sexual intercourse, right? But that takes time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of touch and a lot of vulnerability for each partner to know that, hey, you're loving me, like you're not using me. You can sit in the in the presence of what is with me without needing to have sex with me. And because of that, I trust you and I want to be closer to you. So it walks you through that process. Now, what you're talking about, Tyler, if I have a partner who's unwilling to engage at all, even if I'm willing to take one little tiny step at a time and do it with the best heart, right? And they're unwilling to engage at all. And over time, I'm humble, I'm kind, I'm patient. Eventually, it does come back to me, right? Of asking that question, what works for me? What doesn't work for me? How are we going to manage this? And like for myself, like how do I actually be honest with myself, right? If my partner's never, well, I shouldn't say never. I hate that word never. If it doesn't seem like my partner wants to do the work, then what do I do? Right.
That's the question.
Yeah.
On either side.
Right.
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 On either side. That leaves me in a spot of needing to then make some decisions to either do something different or to choose to see things differently so that I suffer less.
Right. Exactly.
And, sometimes people try to choose to see things differently, but it betrays their values so much that they get resentful.
Right.
And other times they can, and they can find a way to recalibrate like what a sexual intimacy is going to look like in the relationship, and they can find joy and peace in it. And other times they go, you know what, if I'm being honest, like I don't want this to be shallow because it's not shallow at this point, but this is a valuable part. And if we're not leaning towards it in some way, which by the way, the leaning towards it might not be the actual action with each other. It might be, man, my partner is working their tail off trying to figure out some of their past trauma because they can barely get themselves to engage physically because of what's happened in the past.
Right.
Okay, well, if they're still working at that and they're saying, I also want the same things that you're saying you want, but I need to do some work to get there, then great. You get to practice that patience, support, understanding. The best thing you can do is take the pressure off.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to a partner who's already having a hard time engaging and then putting more pressure on, you're doing nobody a service.
Right.
You're not doing yourself, your partner, or the relationship a service by slapping that pressure on top of it.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting what you said about shallow, because it is not shallow to desire sexual intimacy in your life. Right. And so I guess Tyler, we operate on the side of things so much of like, stop with the entitlement. So we work with sex addiction. And so it's all messed up. It's like, well, I consume a partner, I use a partner, and I'm entitled, and, but the other side of it is that if you have truths about desiring sex and intimacy, like honor that, listen to that. Work with your partner as much as you can. Go to a sex therapist. Go to therapy. Go on more dates. Connect in all the fun ways that you possibly can. And ultimately, if your partner still says no, like no sex, then you gotta ask yourself, like, okay, what does that mean for me?
Yeah.
Where do I go from here?
Yeah.
So
I would just add to that, Brannon, sometimes this principle works in a lot of other ways in life, like in business. If you focus on just helping enough other people, business kind of takes care of itself. But if you only focus on the business, you suffer.
yeah,
Sexual intimacy sometimes works that way too, where if you put such a hyper focus on it, that it suffers. But if you put a focus on something broader, then that can also be part of it that actually gets
it's
really a lot better.
Natural byproduct.
So, especially when there's been betrayal, oftentimes sex has been treated as a currency, and it's like a commodity, and it's been done in one way or the other from a partner for consumption. And if both partners can kind of pull out of that and say, we want to redefine how this fits in the broader context of our relationship, and we're moving our relationship from a place of consumption to a place of connection. Now we get to step into all those other places you were talking about. Sensate Focus does that. There's another one called sexual reintegration therapy, which is similar to Sensate Focus, but it includes a lot more verbal discussion type stuff. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the full scale of connection, and I'm going to learn how to love being in the presence of my partner when they tell me this story. I'm going to learn how to just really enjoy being close to them and putting my arm around them while I watch a show. Or and as I learn to offer my presence and practice gratitude and be engaged with receiving their presence, I then do the same principles inside of our physical/sexual intimacy, and that will actually grow as the whole relationship grows. Because the best sex happens when there's true safety and trust.
Right. Exactly. So Tyler, if we were to break this down and get really clear, I think step one is like really checking in with yourself, of asking yourself, am I a partner that can create healthy intimacy? Have I dealt with my own stuff? Have I dealt with my own trauma, my own wounds? You don't have to be perfect, but can I create trust? Can I create safety? I think that's step number one. Right?
I agree with that. It's the self-introspection. And I think maybe step number two is then taking a look at checking the facts of your relationship.
Right.
And saying, what are the facts of the relationship? Am I with a partner who's engaged and committed to similar principles or not?
Right. Right. And
Right.
be really honest with yourself. And I would say do that as neutral or non-judgmental as possible. So it's without the resentment back toward your partner, without the judgment, without the or the blame. Like that, what Tyler just said is not you're assessing how bad they suck.
No, it's really more of a check-in on, are the conditions right for me to actually want to start leaning in a little bit more, or doing this work or not.
Right. And if the conditions aren't right, you don't have to demonize them.
You just keep your boundaries.
It's just the reality is they're not right. Like this doesn't
Yeah.
work for me.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So then, okay, if you get there and you make that assessment and you say the conditions are right, then you can move forward in working on things and being vulnerable and practicing some of the things that we've talked about. If the conditions aren't right for engagement sexually with your partner, then what? What's the next step?
Well, I think the natural place to go is in your boundaries that you're now setting for yourself based on those conditions. Those will be either an invitation for the system to change, or they will eventually lead you to your own choices for something different.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So interpret what you just said. Like,
So basically nothing's getting better. Let's say like my partner actually really doesn't feel safe. My partner's still kind of showing up dishonestly and kind of controlling ways and putting a lot of pressure on me. Therefore, I'm probably not going to lean in and engage the way that I wish I could, because I would like to redevelop that relationship. So I'm going to take some emotional space, maybe some physical space in the relationship, just to make sure that I'm not feeling so much of that like flooding and pressure that's been coming. And my choice to do that is actually an invitation to my partner in its own way to say, hey, if you want more connection, then it's got to be done in some different ways, or else I'm not going to be able to engage that way.
right.
If my
Right.
partner then chooses to come along and do that work, those are good signs, and I can start leaning myself forward again. It's like those little plastic expandable balls where they get this big or they get really small. It's like I'm going to lean in as much as I can for the conditions, and then if the conditions aren't right, I'm going to just expand and then wait and see, and then I'll either lean in or continue to expand outward based off of what my partner decides to choose to do. And two people doing that with each other eventually can kind of like, my hands are moving in and out right now, but like eventually they can kind of work their way into a deeper sense of connection if both partners are willing to work it that way.
Right. Right. And let's say one partner is like, let's say one partner is in this place of, I don't want a divorce, but I also don't want to be close. All the other reasons, the money, the kids, all those reasons keep me here. But
Yeah.
having sex with you is like the last thing on earth that I want to do. So let's say one partner is just unwilling.
Sure. As long as, I mean, I would still recommend honesty on both sides. So if the one partner comes and is like, hey, I don't want to leave because we're too tied up with financial things, and I think it's best for the kids, but I'm not going to have sex with you. I don't have any interest in that. That's at least honest.
Yeah.
And then it gives the other partner a chance to go and think things through and come back and say, that sucks to hear. I had to deal with a ton of shame and I got through my rejection, but you know what? Okay, fine. Like for the sake of the greater good with the kids, and I'll take the consequences of being in a sexless marriage for now. Or maybe I come back and I say, you know what? Like, I know this is really hard, but I think it's worth it for us to split, even though that's going to be really hard on the kids and the finances, because I want to be in a relationship that is working towards all of it and not just some of it.
Right.
Right.
Right. And that's where,
I think honesty is what really matters.
yeah, I think you start there from both sides.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, and this is where relationship with God is really important, of like, okay, like what is my truth here? Like maybe my gut or God or my intuition is telling me to just be patient and to keep working on myself, and we'll see what happens with them. Maybe like the answer I'm getting is, God's telling me it's time to move on, and that's painful and hard and really scary, but maybe that's what I need to do if that's what I'm feeling, right? And so when it comes, and Tyler, we're not trying to cop out with this, right? But when it comes to the question, should I stay in a sexless relationship? You really have to connect and say, okay, like what do I feel peace about? Do I feel peace about being patient? Then stay. Do I feel peace about moving out of this relationship? Then go. Do I feel peace about working on myself and focusing there for a while and not have to get divorced or this way or that way? Then do that, right? But as long as you're checking in with yourself and really saying, this will work for me for now.
I like what you said, checking with yourself and with your higher power.
Yeah.
It's funny too, because you get this, like, I have a handful of people who are in this kind of situation, let's say 3 or more years where there's been no sexual intimacy. And like, they'll come into my groups and like everybody else will be like, what the heck? Like, that's a long time. Like, why don't you leave? And inevitably the answer is, well, because when I talk to God, I'm supposed to stay. Okay, then stay. And when you stay, you're going to get both the peace of mind of knowing that you've already wrestled with it, but you're also going to be able to accept the other parts of the consequences that come with choosing to stay.
And Tyler,
Right.
sometimes people say I've talked to God, and this is where I would really challenge them. Like, it is your answer coming from God or is it coming from fear? Because sometimes it's like, well, it feels like the right thing to do is this, and this is what I should do, and this will bring the least amount of consequences, and everyone will think that I'm doing the right thing if I do this thing. So this must be the right thing.
Yeah.
And what I would challenge that and say, when we talk about wrestling with God for what is good for you and in your gut, it doesn't come from those places of fear and should and shame.
That's right. It's that old scripture we always quote, God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind.
Right.
And that's why that wrestle individually really matters, because then you can come into that group and say, hey, I know everybody sees that you think I'm crazy, but for now, that's what I'm choosing. And it feels
Yeah.
right. And it feels right to me.
Yep.
Okay, great. But yeah, you want to make sure you're making that place from a grounded place, a choice from a grounded place rather than that fearful or compulsive or should place.
Right. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Um, Tyler, there's no easy answers to this. This brings up every part of a relationship, you know, all of the trauma that you're each bringing to the table, all of the protective parts that are there, and your commitment that you have to each other, all of the conditioning that you've had, the belief systems, like it brings it all to the table. And it's a beautiful thing because I think we have this for a reason. It really pushes us to work on ourselves if we allow it.
Yeah.
So this has been a good discussion, Tyler.
Yeah. I just maybe add one last thought to this, Brannon. I just something that I see. I think I would call this like second level recovery, like higher tiered recovery when you get to this kind of spot in your relationship, because you're past the point of just worrying about staying sober and there's some level of trust that's being built. Then there's this practice period. We've referred to it as the messy middle before, and I just wanted to impress upon anyone listening that if you find yourself in a spot where you're in a relationship where you're working on your own recovery, you sense that your partner is working on their recovery, you're in that spot, and then you want to start leaning in. When you start leaning in, it's going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to maybe bring up old feelings. It's going to bring up old triggers. It's going to be hard. It's going to feel awkward. And people sometimes get discouraged and give up and say it's never going to get better, when in reality, being ridiculously patient with one another and being willing to offer grace in the practice. If you sense that your partner is genuinely doing their work, then offer grace and let yourselves practice and get it wrong a few times. But then come back and talk about how to make it better and try again and give yourselves a chance to exercise and develop the muscles that actually do lead to deeper connection.
It was a process to get you to where you're at with this stuckness. It's going to take a process to help you get unstuck. And so engage one step at a time and be willing to do that work together. And you absolutely, I've seen couples go from like really being stuck with intimacy to thriving together and doing well together. But they were both willing to do that work, and they both wanted to do it.
Absolutely. So love the question. Thank you for whoever submitted this question. You're definitely not alone. Thank you to everyone listening for your support. Hopefully we're helpful to you too. And until next time, keep on keeping on.